Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stepping Up to the Plate. I'm your host, Michael Vega. So glad you could join us here. Fall football is in the air, and I'm here with my main man, Al Prizzuti. So much to dissect and analyze here with the end of the Red Sox season at 81-81.
That was April.
Oh, and then, of course, another disappointing effort by the Patriots out in San Francisco, where more problems are cropping up in terms of injury. And then, of course, we've got some excitement here locally with the Milton High football team. Congratulations to them. A shout out for a big-time victory here at Brooks Field last Friday, 55-28 over Holliston. Al, that was a beatdown. And special shout out, Ryan Fulton and Patrick Collins connecting on touchdowns of 6 yards, 29 and 41. And then you had Harry Hinkle and Ronan Salmon also contributing. Harry Hinkle, congratulations to him. He was recognized as one of the Division III Globe Players of the Week for his performance. He had a block punt, he had a 65-yard touchdown catch, and then he also had a unbelievable kickoff return to start off Milton on its first scoring drive. But the Wildcats are rolling. Now they'll go and visit the Wildcats of Weymouth on Friday night. Tough team, Al. They got a tough running game. This guy, Cam Ayeda, who is a tough runner. So the Milton High defense, its run defense in particular, is going to be really tested in this game. But we'll see if the Wildcats can produce the same number of points as they did this past week. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're doing. They're rolling now. I think they're rolling. So congratulations, Coach Steve Dembowski and the Milton Wildcat football team. So at any rate, Al, so much to dissect and analyze here with, as I said, the end of the Red Sox season. If you'd like, we can leap into that and kind of, put a final note on that. 81-81 really wasn't much is what we were expecting, here, and so much happened. I see encouraging signs with some of the young players who are coming up through the ranks, some of the players who made it to the big league. Sedan Rafaela was one. The emergence of Jaron Duran, I think, as an everyday player. He posted, as Alex Cora would say. And but Al, in retrospect, pitching was a huge disappointment for this team.
Yeah, I think pitching defense. I mean, the defense was, they didn't really establish a set defense.
Right.
I mean, you had different players playing shortstop, different players playing second, and it's hard when you don't have a shortstop and a second baseman that know each other's moves and whatnot, especially on double plays and who covers and how quick they are and stuff like that. But I think the big disappointments for me, and I guess you could say is somewhat of a plus, I thought the pitching at times was good, but there was no consistency there. I mean, so at times it's the old roller coaster routine. Pavetta is a great example of that, where he goes out and pitches 7 innings, strikes out 10, gives up 3 home runs or 2 home runs and loses the game. But he's a 3-4. I think he's probably realized that the Red Sox aren't going to pick him up. I think the Red Sox got to start to take a look at their lineup. I mean, they have a ton of left-handers. I think Tristan Casas could be a guy that they say he hit 13 home runs. He's an average first baseman. I think he might have a little weight issue going 4 or 5 years from now. So I think if they can get a pitcher, and if they don't keep O'Neill another right-handed bat, he could be in trouble. I think Dev has had a kind of a roller coaster year, quite frankly.
Injury plagued now too.
He was injury plagued, but a lot of guys go through that and still produce. He dropped off on his batting average. He's definitely can hit for the power and home runs, and he's still at best an average third baseman. So to give him the 11 years, I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I think he's a decent ball player. I think Rafaela was a better ball player than I thought he was, and I think Abreu is a better hitter.
Yeah.
And he's got a pretty good arm. and he can run. So the Red Sox have a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. I mean, Connor Wong doesn't look like a catcher to me. I mean, he can hit for power. He can run. I think
Even played in the field.
he can play in the field. So he's a guy like a Holt that you can put in. He's a great utility guy when guys go down, he can fill in.
But his greatest value is as your catcher, though.
Yeah, but I think his greatest value, believe it or not, for the Red Sox is he can hit as well.
Yes.
So, and hit the long ball. For a guy who's not that big, he's got some thunder in his bat.
I like Rob Refsnyder in that role,
Well,
too.
Refsnyder was talking about retiring. Now he's kind of pulled back and said that he thinks he could stay for another year. So if you have Refsnyder, you got O'Neill, you got Cedeno, Raphael in center field, or shortstop, probably center field, because Story's a player.
Yeah.
Story we haven't seen over a long period of time. He started to hit. Grissom started to hit toward the end of the year as well.
And those two guys would have been your middle infield.
Yeah. So I mean, if you
that's
have
where they were
if you have
projecting those
Story
two
at
guys.
short and Grissom at second, and let's say Casas and Devers,
On the corners. Yeah.
that's still not a bad team. What they need is steady pitching. And they need a one. They need a guy that you can say, okay, well, he's going to win when he goes out. And the Red Sox haven't had that for a long time.
They had him. Chris Sale.
Well, Chris Sale, when he was at his best, but he had those questionable years in terms of injuries, and some of it self-inflicted and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Pitching in the American League is much more difficult than pitching in the National League. So the fact that he's won 18 games in the National League, I think, would be 12 or 13, 14 games in the American League.
They take it.
Yeah, well, I think they would take it. I think he proved to them that he's a worker.
Yeah.
He was a guy who didn't want to give you the ball in the seventh inning.
No.
He'd give you 9. So, they haven't made the best. So if you wanted to say where I'm disappointed, I think I'm disappointed in the management of this team. I don't think Cora has done a great job. If you think about it, 3 of the last 4 years, they've finished close to last. Not even a 50. Now,
But did they give him the tools, though?
well, yeah, that's another thing. Whether they did or they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people look at Dick Williams when he came in '67, and guys go, he said, "We're going to win more games than we lose," and they win it because he pushed them.
Yeah.
There's intangibles. I mean, I can't say what it is, but I don't think Cora's a pusher. I think he's the guy that all the players like.
Yeah.
Dick Williams is the guy that everybody hated, but he pushed guys to do it. So, it's a philosophy, whether you like this or you like that. Yeah. I happen to think that the manager in baseball is only as good as strategy. He can't play the game.
So, Al, if we were to go through the biggest disappointments, biggest surprise, and your MVP of the season, who would those be? And I'll give you mine.
Well, the biggest disappointment for me was aside from the injuries, because Story would have been a player, I think, that could have contributed in a lot of ways that he wasn't there.
Right.
Okay, so throw that out. Surprise for me, disappointment for me. Devers was somewhat of a disappointment for me. When you pay the money that they did, $11 million, he's got to watch his, and I've been reading about this recently, he's got to watch his after-season
workouts
regimen.
Yeah.
And get some weight and muscle on.
Right.
He's kind of a heavy kid. He's not a worker so much, and I think he owes the Red Sox to do that. He has done it on his own, incidentally. He should stick to what the Red Sox are telling him to do.
Well, my biggest disappointment, I think, flip side of that would be on the pitching side, is Brian Bello.
Yeah.
They committed a lot of dollars to him. They made a big bet on him, and it seems like it didn't pan out this year for him. And I think maybe is it the weighty burden of a contract like that?
No.
But he seemed to lose his way during the course of the season.
I'll tell you
and
what,
he became more of a detriment than he was.
Two things with
an asset.
Brian Bello, though, I think, is one was the expectation was set so high because Pedro Martinez said that he's the next Pedro, so to speak. When you set an expectation like that, no matter what they do, if they don't hit it, they're kind of a flop. What it was with Bello was exactly like Pivetta. He'd go out and give you a great game, And then after the first time through the order, teams would get a sense of what he was doing.
Yeah.
I think Tanner Houck was the better pitcher.
Could've been
So you
a
say,
surprise, yeah.
who's going to be their ace next year? I don't know whether you've
That's
got
up for
one.
grabs.
So you've got a 2 with Tanner Houck. You might have a 3 with Bello. What's his name? The kid that was
Garrett
out all
Whitlock.
season. No, the kid that didn't pitch, Gelato.
Yeah, Lucas Giolito.
Giolito.
Yeah.
Could be the
Yeah.
guy. So they have a lot of ifs. Ifs don't count in the Boston market.
Right.
Because you're paying top dollars to go to that game. We charge more to go to the Red Sox games.
Oh, for sure.
So the fans' expectation is pretty high. But I think the management, and John Henry wasn't there for, what's his name, Castiglione's party that they had at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Which is
A little
weird because you got a guy
odd.
who spent 42
2
years
years
with
with
the
the
Red Sox.
organization, yeah.
So I think overall, the only plus is, think about this. They were 81 and 81. The Yankees won 95.
Yeah.
If the Yankees lost 7 more and the Red Sox win 7 more, you got a tie.
Yeah, and you'd be in it. And so
7
your
games
big-
are not a lot.
Yeah. My biggest surprise would be Wilyer Abreu. What a catch he was. What a find he was. But it's almost like he landed in their laps, in terms of that deal that was cut when they traded the MVP,
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, Christian.
He's playing for, I saw him the other night, the team the Red Sox played. Was it Toronto?
The Rays.
Tampa.
Tampa. Yeah. He's down there bouncing around. But what a find. A hitter, great power stroke, can play the outfield. He does it all for you and solidifies that, important corner outfield spot, I think. And so, and for you, Al, what would have been?
Well, the other thing is, I think you got to look at 2 things. You got to look at the pitching coach and you got to look at the hitting coach. The Red Sox struck out probably more than any team in baseball.
Are you still stuck on disappointment, or?
Yeah, I am in
surprise?
a way because you can't strike out 12 to 15 times a game
Yeah.
against, my opinion, average pitching.
No.
Okay, and the Red Sox are swingers. They go for balls that aren't strikes. That's the hitting coach.
Yeah.
Okay, the pitching coach I think is subject. So they need relief pitching.
Yeah.
They've got nobody that's a closer, and they got nobody who on the starting side that's a number 1. If they don't fix those 2 things, they'll be a 500 team next
Again,
year as
yeah.
well. Oh, they got some kids. That's the other thing I think that they've done, and you got to say that Chaim Bloom did some good things in stocking
The minors.
because there's 3 or 4 guys that might step in next year and be decent.
I
ball
hope they don't use those guys as trade chips.
Well,
I
unless
don't. To
unless
get a
they
number
get a
1
one.
guy,
Yeah.
But so your MVP would be?
Jared Duran.
I'm with you on that one, Jaron Duran.
Well, I mean, he can do everything. I mean, he's
I mean,
dangerous
he
on
made
the
a
base
tremendous.
path.
He made tremendous strides in terms of where he was a year ago to where he is now.
Well, his strides are, I mean, he's a better outfielder than he ever was.
Better
I mean,
hitter.
but he's a consistent, he's consistent all year. I think he ended up at
Yeah.
290 something. But he hit for power, some power, not huge power.
And he
some-
wreaked havoc on the base paths.
But on the base paths, he's just amazing to
amazing,
watch.
amazing.
I mean, those guys.
For me, it was reminiscent of Mookie Betts and what he did when he would get on base.
Yeah, you hit the ball in the gap at Fenway Park, and he's on first base. He's going to score.
Yeah.
He could score. Let me put it that way.
He will be on third, or he will have scored. Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd say Jared Duran.
Well, so after an 81-81 season, there's some things to still be encouraged about, but still a lot of disappointment. And we'll see how Red Sox Nation handles that as they transition into football season, where a lot of disappointment is being met by a lot of fans there of the Patriots, especially after a tough loss they took out in San Francisco. A depleted San Francisco team, Al.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a game that they could have maybe had they, been able to possess the ball, not turn it over, and protect Jacoby Brissett, because he's not going to be standing on his feet very long if every game he gets subjected to the amount of punishment he took against the 49ers.
Yeah, I think a couple of things.
6 sacks, Al.
Some of the things here with the Patriots are almost similar to the Red Sox. The expectation was that Belichick was out and Gerard Mayo was going to come in and he's going to turn the team around. They don't have the talent to turn around. And secondly, they don't have an offensive line to protect a mid-range quarterback like Brissett. Okay?
What he is he's pretty tough.
He's a tough kid. I mean, I'm not saying he's not tough. He gets hit, I mean, just way too much. And I would
just like
put,
who
I
in the
wouldn't
past.
put May in there.
Remember Steve Grogan? How many?
Yeah, look at.
He wound up his career having to wear a neck roll.
Yeah, well,
as
I mean,
a quarterback.
it's tough to watch, but it's also indicative of what this team really is. So I wasn't surprised that they lost to San Francisco or that they're 1-3. I think this team's going to be lucky to win. They got a tough schedule coming up still.
Yes.
Lucky to win 6, maybe 7 games.
Oh, that's going to be.
And everybody's saying that they have a chance of getting the number 1 draft pick again, which means that they'll be the worst team in football.
I think they are already there.
Well, they could be.
I think they're there.
They could be. But, look at the kid for Detroit.
Who?
Perfect game.
Jared Goff.
18
of
for
18. And he had a touchdown reception in that game, Al.
Well, he gave the ball to a guy who caught that reception.
He
should have had it.
He threw it into the stands.
Well, he should have had it.
Unbelievable.
But, I mean, if you look around the league, there's a number of teams that you just go, the Patriots have no chance against. And they played a depleted San Francisco in San Francisco. I understand that.
Yeah.
But they weren't in that game.
So now they got a depleted. They got a depleted Miami Dolphins team now.
Well,
this might be their best chance to win.
But you look at the Jets. The Jets, I think Buffalo is the best team in the division, and I think you've got the Jets have proven that they're better than the Patriots at this stage. Miami is on paper a better team than the Patriots. So where's that keep putting the Patriots? I mean, they're down at the bottom.
They keep going down.
So San Francisco. Kind of like watching Kansas City, they've got talent if they're not injury prone.
Yeah.
Kansas City's 4-0, and they got a great quarterback.
The Vikings are 4-0.
Vikings are 4-0. That's the surprise.
And they have Sam Darnold at their
But that's a surprise.
Yeah.
Buffalo is not a surprise because of the quarterback. So if you can't win with a quarterback, Patriots could get.
But you know what, though,
league,
Al? The reason the Patriots lost at San Francisco wasn't because of Brock Purdy, although he's pretty good. It was because of their defense.
Oh, Boza.
My goodness. Maron. He's like, he was on that guy like white on rice. Al, that poor offensive tackle had no shot. No shot. He plays with such leverage. He comes at you, steaming around the end. And now if you're offensive, you're on skates. You're on roller skates. He puts you on the skateboard.
It was almost embarrassing to see what he did to I think the guy's name was Williams.
Yeah.
Just embarrassing.
Yeah. Wallace. Wallace.
He goes right around him.
Right around him.
And then pushes him off. I mean, so anyways, I think the expectation was that they were going to be a little better. I think the expectation for me was that they're not a good team. So I'm not as disappointed. I mean, disappointed in that they aren't better, but disappointed in where they are. I think they are where they are because of who they are.
Yeah. And the other team that's shown a great promise locally that we haven't talked much about is Boston College, Al.
I watched that game.
That game was unbelievable. The fact that they did it with their backup guy who came out a little rusty, off the mark, but he kind of gathered himself. And that defense is unbelievable.
First of all, they weren't a considerable underdog or favorite against Western Kentucky. That was, come on, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
But they were up by 2 touchdowns, and BC come back and then wins. That's the sign of a good team, meaning a well-coached team, is that they stay together. They still say, listen, we're in this, and they come back and they win by 1
They make adjustments.
or 2.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things
they get big plays from their defense. They had a couple of Donovan and Zaraku with a strip sack, and the secondary with a couple of interceptions.
They're a good hitting team.
They're definitely a good hitting team, but the resilience grows with each game.
Yeah.
And now they go to Virginia. They have a big game at Virginia. and you see them getting better and better. Now the situation with their quarterback is a little bit distressing because on the one hand you have Thomas Castellanos, who's a game breaker. He's like a Kyler Murray. He's able to break down defenses. And now you go back to his backup, who is Grayson James. He's a 6-foot guy, 6'4", I think he is, prototype pocket passer, but has shown that he has mobility as well and can see down the field. But the thing is that I don't think he's as accurate as Castellanos.
Yeah. Well, I think O'Brien put it right on and said, you got to play the AC guys, Virginia, those teams.
Yeah, you got to beat
and
them.
this is where we're going to see what this team is all about.
Right.
I think he's got them believing. Belief is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And these guys believe that they can win. And I think that's the positive that O'Brien's brought to this team other than good coaching.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think it's an interesting thing. It's fun to watch BC play because they're in the games.
Yeah.
And without Castellano, I thought that they would lose that game. They could possibly have lost that game, and they could have.
Let me tell you that Western Kentucky team was pretty good.
Yeah.
They had a very good offensive scheme.
Yeah.
I like the way they would get the ball out on perimeter, go throw it underneath
They
routes.
outplayed BC, to be honest with you. I thought they outplayed them until the end.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then like a little seg in the time we have, the Bruins.
Bruins, it's still a preseason now.
Well, there's
you liking what you see? I'm a little concerned though about the handling of the Jeremy Swayman situation. And as a launching point, we can.
Well,
discuss
I watched the press conference.
Yeah.
And I thought that Jacobs did a nice job. He passed the baton over to Cam Neely. I thought Neely did a kind of a poor job.
Yeah.
In his wording
Yeah.
to bring up the amount of money, which still nobody knows whether he offered that kind of money or not.
And to elicit the response from Swayman's representation.
Well, his agent
were not
said,
released.
this is the first we've heard of this.
Right. So now you're acting disingenuously when you're floating that figure out.
It creates animosity between player and the team. But the Bruins would be in trouble because they gave up Ullman, and if they don't sign Swayman, they're going to have to do something because Caposalo, who's had a pretty decent preseason, and Boosie played a good game last night. So that aside, I think they messed up on that press conference.
Yes.
I've watched all of the games, and what I've seen with this team, let me get into a couple of things. They sent Fabian Lysell and Merkelov back down
to Providence.
I'm not sure that was the best thing to do. I look at it this way. Bruins are a good defensive team, and other than Pasternak, they don't have any elite scorers. I think you give up a little defense in age to Lysell to have him in there because got to see what this kid can do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been up. This is his third year. They drafted him as their first pick. Merkelov is a different type of player, but he's also a goal. He scored a lot of goals, and he's a good passer.
Playmaker. Yeah.
And he's a 200 foot player, where Lysell still needs to learn some things. But you can't have a perfect player at 21. 22 years old. You just can't.
Well, even Bergeron wasn't the finished product
No,
at that
you
age.
can't. But you got to get up against the big guys to see how you're going to do. Yeah. I am a little disappointed in, it's preseason. I shouldn't say that. The first couple of games, they didn't play Charlie Coyle. They didn't play Marchand. They didn't play, what's his name? The kid they picked up, Lindholm. So I think what's happening now, last night Marchand played only the first period. He was sick.
Yeah.
He had a flu or something like that because Montgomery said after the game, he said, I wouldn't worry about him coming back. The Swayman is the big deal here.
Yeah.
I think that if they trade him, there's 3 teams that are looking for him, and I know Montreal would trade him. Now, what's Montreal got that the Bruins need? I don't know. Yeah. Because they don't need defensemen. What they need is either a scorer or a goaltender.
Centerman. Another centerman?
Well, we're going to have to see what, Pavel Zacha is going to be the interesting one because they're
Well, he's
playing
going to
him
be
at
center.
wing.
He's going to center. He's got to center that top line, won't he?
Well, is Charlie Coyle the guy? Charlie Coyle had a better year last year than he's ever had. So that doesn't mean that he's going to be that good. Morgan, they have a lot of guys that played above their level last year. Morgan Geekie was one.
Trent
Scored
Frederick.
18 goals. Trent Frederick has been with the Bruins for a long time. The quintessential type Bruin, hard hitter.
Yeah.
Who can now, they want him to score more, obviously. So, but they say that about everybody. They want them to score more. Well, if they don't shoot or they're not elite scorers like Pasternak,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
I'll be interested to see how DeBrusque does this season, and just as a kind of like a.
My guess is he's going to score
contrast.
25 to 30 goals. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Even when he's another guy that's a roller coaster. He's up and down. He doesn't do anything for a couple of games.
Yeah.
What the Bruins need, because they have always had good goaltending, which is the question, and good defense, is they need scorers.
Yeah.
Now, those are big questions because now they don't look like they have the goaltending.
Yeah.
And they don't look like they have the scoring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To win the Cup, now they start the season against the Panthers.
Yes. Tough.
I mean, so
They're going to be raising the banner there, and you're going to be sitting there watching, and then now they become arch rivals,
Yeah, but just think they only lost by one game to the Panthers last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is still a good team. This is a team that I think will still make the playoffs and could surprise a lot of people if some things come in. Swayman, by not playing in any of the preseason games, because it doesn't look like he's going to play in any of them, because
He's not going to be in that game, in goal in that game.
Well, no, Capasalo's already been tabbed as the game one starter. The interesting thing about Capasalo is that he's a better goalie than I think Boston gives him credit. Boston gave him credit for. He now has what's his name, Esna?
Yeah, Bob Esna.
Esna, who's always been a great goalie coach with a team that's a good defensive team. He'll be better than people think he is. And Busey made a big save in the third period.
Al, the thing that disappoints me is that, everything seemed to work so well when they had two goalies. And these guys would be hugging it out after wins, and they seem to support each other. Now there's no more goalie hugs for the guy that they really need to put their arms around now.
I think because they didn't think Ullman was the Vezina Trophy winner that he was with this team. He's going to be an okay goalie, but I think they thought Swayman was the guy anyways. And not play them 50-50. I think you're going to get Swayman would have played 50 and the other guy play 30.
Yeah.
So
well,
we'll see.
That's going to do it for us this week. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to remind you to get out to Weymouth on Friday, 7 o'clock, start of the kickoff there for the Big Tilt, Milton Wildcats versus the Wildcats of Weymouth. All righty, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time here on Steppin' Up.